Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a short little knife review / knife overview to share with you guys, and I mean that. I'm going to do my best to keep it under 10 minutes. This is the Miguron Keryx 2 Budget Edition. Originally, I had reviewed this knife in its premium form, which I'll also link down in the description. This one's going to be down there too, by the way. This is the budget version. The last one was a front flipper. This is a regular flipper. Outside of that, it's got micarta and 14C28N instead of titanium, and I believe M390 was the other one. Either way, they're both down there. It does help my channel when you use those links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me. Thanks to Miguron for sending this knife in. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. Overall length is coming in at about 7.65 inches overall. We have a blade length of about 3.35, cutting edge 3 inches. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons. Any custom scales you find in this section can be found down in the description under Original Goat and Others. Up against the 8010 and the 8020.5. Definitely more of an 8020.5 size knife. Let's put it up against the Spyderco PM2 and the Spyderco Para 3. Also closer to the size of the Spyderco Para 3. And then last but not least, let's put it up against the Benchmade Griptilian, or in this case the Ritter Hogue, and the Hogue Deca. How's the action on this knife? It's exactly what you'd expect from Miguron. They do a great job. It's very close to a double clutch situation with the flipper tab, but it actually clears it, which is nice. And then you can use the little hole there to reverse flick it. You can also use the flipper tab to flip it. Everything works the way that you'd expect, and there is honestly a really nice amount of access to the lock bar. So everything's going to feel pretty organic for the most part. Let's go ahead and do carry profile. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's slightly thicker, right? But it's also subtly contoured, which is something that you should take note of. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. This guy closed up carries very similarly to the PM2 without the height. Overall length is very, very similar. It's much shorter than the Spyderco PM2, and again, not quite as tall, despite the fact that it has a flipper tab. Let's go ahead and weigh it. So what are we looking at for materials? We're looking at, in this case, a green, or like a forest green micarta. We're looking at a titanium pocket clip, which seems to be kind of that added bonus feature that Miguron is offering when most other companies are not. We have what appears to be a G10, or no, it's a G10 backspacer, steel liners, and a 14C28N blade. So, and by the way, these are milled out on the inside for weight reduction. So the weight on this guy is coming in at 3.56 ounces, which is a pretty good ratio considering the blade length. Balance on this knife is slightly back of the pivot, but the knife just doesn't really feel overly large or heavy. So no issues there. While I've got the calipers right here, I'm actually going to do, I cut the video if you caught that, and I ran upstairs to get the doorbell, and I'm slightly out of breath. That's embarrassing. Blade stock thickness is coming in at about 100, it says 118,000, so on the thinner side. Go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel, or the pinned comment. That deep breath was not for me. It was to get out all of that information. It was for me. T8 pivot, and then we have T6 pocket clip screws, T8 body screws, minimal hardware, mostly T8, which is good. As long as you have the right tools for the job, you should be good to go. Are we set to do meat and potatoes? I think we are. It's the same thing as the titanium guy, except people who don't like an exposed frame lock and don't want to pay the money for the premium one will very much enjoy this, because this is a liner lock. A liner lock that is, by the way, just fine, plenty reliable. But a liner lock, so you don't have to worry about where to put your fingers while you're flipping it, right? Again, deployment, very, very good. Ergonomics, you're cut short a little bit by the fact that this is a flipper and not a front flipper. If it were a front flipper, like the premium version, this flipper tab would not be there, opening this area up much more. But in this case, I'm going to say that's okay. Miguron has a lot of knives that are very similar in design, and they have a flipper, don't have a flipper, they have a thumb hole, they have a thumb stud, they have a front flipper. Some combinations work better with other combinations, but I think it's nice that they have this in the budget territory that does have a choke-up spot, that does have an opening hole, but also has a flipper tab for people who want to utilize that flipper tab and don't necessarily care about choking up most of the time, maybe want to do it here and there. I think that's fine. Obviously, it would be opened up a little more without the flipper tab, or perhaps making the flipper tab just lower profile, carving out this area back here on the back to open up this area for the flipper tab and then make it not so pronounced up here, but it's fine the way that it is. I don't want to be super nitpicky. Ergonomically, it's very good. The fact that they use a milled titanium pocket clip that is maybe just a hair over the line at 50%, but it's flat and it's not sharp, so there's no bill going up into your hand. So I don't have a problem with that. It's curved, so it's obviously right hand only. They didn't mill it out for lefties. Miguron, you've got to find a universal pocket clip shape and mill out all your knives for left and right hand carry. It's got to be costing you more money to make these individual pocket clips than it would to just drill the holes out on both sides and just find a simple shape that works with most of your designs. Obviously, that's a simple solution for probably a more complex issue, and I can honestly almost see Miguron rolling their eyes like this idiot has no idea what he's talking about, but lefties will appreciate the effort if you can find a way to do that. Satin finish on this 14C28N blade, which is, I guess, more sheep's footy than anything else, and that's fine. The edge is actually slightly curved, and it's flat ground, but it's nice and thin down at the edge. Miguron does a good job with that. Their 14C28N seems to be pretty good. No sharp, well, actually, it's a little bit sharp up here on this swedge, but not bad. You're not normally going to have your finger up there unless you're doing draw cuts, which they have a little extra slant right here so that you can do that. Honestly, overall, the blade shape is very, very utilitarian, and I appreciate it. I think that's just fine. Otherwise, no issues with the blade. In fact, fit and finish all the way around is very, very good. Very typical Miguron, so no issues there. Backspacer offering a little bit of color contrast considering it's black against the polished liners and ultimately the contoured micarta forest green scales, so that looks good. No lanyard hole, but almost nobody cares anymore, so I'm not going to complain, obviously. Carry depth is about medium. It's fine. In and out of the pocket is fine. This is a little bit shallow, so sometimes it can feel kind of pinchy unless you have really thin pocket seams, but for the most part, it's good. And hey, it's a titanium clip. We don't normally get that. What's the benefit of a titanium clip? These freaking knife reviewers and these pocket knife people, they get so obsessed about materials. Stop! The reason that we like titanium is not just because it's titanium and we're just ooh shiny crow brain. Well, actually, we are. But titanium offers a benefit. It's much more forgiving. A steel Civivi clip with that Loch Ness monster bill is much, much more likely to bend out permanently or even break than a titanium clip. Not only is this shaped in a way that it's not grabby, but the material itself is actually better long term. Number one, it's not going to rust because it's titanium. Unless you drop it at the bottom of the ocean, right? Number two, it's much more forgiving, which is exactly what I was talking about. So this is actually beneficial and is a huge benefit to people who plan to carry this one knife long term. Absolutely. The stop pin is located in its traditional position. There is a good amount of shouldering, so that's great. No blade play up, down, left to right, no lock stick, no double clutch, just barely, but no double clutch, no pivot lash, very smooth and consistent in here, and a nice medium D10 is about where I'd put it. Centering looks slightly off to the right, and that's probably from me flipping it. Can be adjusted with the pivot head on this side. This is a $59 knife. Miguron seems to have just slightly creeped up in pricing over the last year and a half. I think maybe $4 to $5 on average across the board. And let's be honest, I'm not really too upset about that because they offer a titanium pocket clip and their pricing to begin with has always been very, very good. This is easily a $59 knife. I really don't have an issue with it. They offer such amazing quality at the price point that I just can't argue with it. I think the Keryx 2 is not offering any major personality over any of their other designs, but you know, as a consistent baseline, it's just very, very good. Like if you just specifically like this model out of the multitude of other models that they offer, yeah, go for it. It's a great budget knife. I'm going to be putting this in my cheap knives I like playlist, and that's about it. It's not a knife you need to be beating down doors for, but if you're looking for a good budget pocket knife, this is definitely one. That's going to be about it, guys. I'll link this down below. Multiple configurations and colors available. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.